So this is the My Name Is project in Pro Tools, and we're going to use a lot of the same kind of information and process that we used already in Mixing 101 as well as in Beat Making 101, but we're going to bring in a whole bunch of additional things as well. And this video is really just about those new things and how to make them work as efficiently and as effectively. And eventually, the hope is that this will give you as many creative options as possible. So, mostly what we're talking about now is previously we've been dealing with sound that was coming from inside the computer, be that stems from Mixing 101 or virtual instruments in beat making. This time we're going to be dealing with a microphone plugged into an external interface and getting that sound recorded into Pro Tools and then manipulating it. And that's the whole purpose of this particular project. So, how do we do that? Well, the first thing we need to do is we need to make sure that we have an interface plugged in. Now, this is going to plug in very similar to a MIDI controller, in this case with a USB cable. And in fact, in my studio right here, I have a small 2x2 interface. We've talked about what that means, 2 in and 2 out. Interface very similar to some of the ones that you have available in CMAS at your station. So I wanted to use one of those so that it would be familiar to you, hopefully. So here is the interface. I've got it in front of me. There's a bunch of knobs on the front. I want you to just set them for now. Every interface, whenever you plug it in, for now at least, just set all the knobs up at 12 o'clock. We'll be manipulating them later on and doing some different things with them, but for now, 12 o'clock at least, you'll be able to have a starting point where you won't feel like, wait, I can't hear something or I don't know how something is working. So start those at 12 o'clock. All right, you also have a headphone jack. Now be aware that different interfaces have that headphone jack in different locations. Look for the headphone icon. In this case, it's on the top here. I've got my headphones plugged in just like you will. On the back of this, let me turn this around so you can see it a little easier. You can see that we've got our USB port here. We've got monitor outs. Now these are not inputs, these are outputs. Don't plug your guitar into one of these inputs. You won't get anything. What this is for is to connect speakers, for example, so that you can listen and monitor that way. And then also over here we have two input lines. So we've got line 1 and 2, and it's very important that you note which one is 1 and which one is 2. Now they can take, in this case, these are called multi-jacks, and they can actually take an XLR, which is what I've got plugged in here, or they can take a 1/4-inch plug on either one. So you can plug in 2 microphones or 2 guitars or any combination that you want of those into this interface. So I'm going to leave my cable plugged into channel 1 for now. And I have also connected on the other end of that, I happen to have a microphone. This is a dynamic microphone. It's actually one of my favorites. It's a Beta 57A by Shure, but any of the microphones that you have at your stations for this project will work. Okay, so we have the microphone plugged into the interface. The interface is connected to the computer, and I know this because I have power indicated, and it says the USB connection is good with those little green LEDs, but I need to make sure, just like before, that I have all of my connections correctly made in Pro Tools so that I can get the sound in and get the sound out so I can hear it. So what I'm going to do is, as before, I'm going to go up to my setup. I'm going to pick Playback Engine. I'm going to get this screen right here. Now in my case, I'm using an Onyx Blackjack and it's already selected. However, if you have, and I have lots of options in my studio right now, but if any of these others are available to you and you don't pick the interface you're using, nothing's going to work. I'm using an Onyx Blackjack. It has to be the Onyx Blackjack that I pick, or I will have a problem. So make sure you select the correct interface. From there, you're going to get this screen here. Just hit yes, and then you're going to leave everything on this screen okay, and it's going to recycle our Pro Tools session here in just a moment, and now we're back to Pro Tools as we were before. The next thing I need to do is I got to make sure that once I have the interface identified, and you need to do these in the correct order, I need to go up to Setup once again, and I need to go to I/O this time. That stands for Input Output. And I want to double check that at least my output is defaulted and my inputs are defaulted. These other tabs we'll get to, but for now, Input and Output, then hit OK. This is to make sure that everything aligns with the interface, the internal wiring, the virtual wiring of the channel I'm about to create. So the goal of this project is to record my voice and then manipulate that recording a little bit. Here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to go up to Track, and I'm going to say New. I could use a click track if I wanted for this project, but I don't really need it, so I'm not going to worry about it. I need one, in this case mono. I'm using a single microphone, so mono, single source. Now, different tracks, as we've talked, are used for different purposes. I am bringing sound in from outside the computer. I'm using the interface. I want an audio track. I do not want an instrument track this time. Even if I was recording a guitar from outside the computer, which, by the way, what I'm about to show you with the microphone works very similarly for connecting a guitar. It's just instead of using an XLR cable to the mic, you're going to use a 1/4-inch cable to the guitar or any other similar device if you want. But in any case, even if it's an instrument from outside the computer, we want to make sure that we are using an audio track. Leave samples as is, hit create. And once again, now I've got a track over here on the left side. It's called Audio 1. I want you to get in the habit of always renaming the track to what the thing actually is. What's the source? In this case, it's going to be my voice. Not only is it a microphone, but I know it's my voice. So I'm going to call my track Richard, and I'm going to use the word VOX, Vox, which is short for vocal. And I hit OK, and now it's called Richard Vox. So this way, everything I do, I know what it is just from looking at the track name. It's a lot easier later on when I start doing multi-track projects and things can get very, very complicated very, very fast. All right, so now the question is, how do I get sound into my microphone? Well, I pick up my microphone, and trust me, I'm talking into it right now, but nothing's going into Pro Tools. Why not? Well, I need to make sure that Pro Tools knows what part of the interface I'm using and that which track I'm going to. Even though there's only one track, I still have to tell Pro Tools which track do I want to record onto. So here's what I'm going to do. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this column right here. It says I/O. Now, if for some reason you don't have this column on your channel strip, go to this little white drop-down menu and make sure that I/O is selected. If it doesn't have a check mark next to it, you'll see it disappears, and that's going to be a problem for me. So I want I/O selected. All right, now, the one on the left is my inputs. The one on the right is my outputs. If I stretch this a little bit, you'll notice that the inputs wind up on the top and the outputs wind up on the bottom, but it's the same button that I'm going to be pressing. Now, I'm going to press this, and I am, if you look at my interface, I'm plugged into channel 1. So I need to make sure that we're seeing channel 1. Now, this particular interface does something a little quirky with its labels, and there is a way in Pro Tools to change it, but I don't want to worry about it right now. I just want to make sure that you're aware of it. Click on the input button in the I/O column, which is this top one, and I'm going to go to interface. Now, something you should know: front left and front right left. It's a long way of saying the back port on the interface. It's just the way it defaults. Here's what you need to remember. When you're dealing with interfaces, in general, if it's a 2x2, 2 in, 2 out, channel 1, channel A, and left are all the same. Channel 2, channel B, and right are all the same. So there's a whole bunch of words here, but basically it's left, which means it's also channel 1. So I'm okay. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to record enable my track right there. Now, I can see signal as I speak into the microphone. I can see the signal coming out, coming into Pro Tools. And I'm projecting. Now, if I'm really soft, it's really soft. And the meter is really low. If I'm projecting nicely, it'll be stronger. Now, I also have a way to adjust how much signal is coming in. It's over on the interface. I can see on channel 1 right here, I can see an LED that's telling me I'm getting signal corresponding to the meter up on the screen. What I can also do is change the position of this dial. This is my gain knob, signal strength. I can turn it up and I will get more signal. Now be careful because you don't want to distort. I can turn it down and I get less signal. There's a little U that happens to be here. I don't know if you can quite see it or not. I'll try to zoom in. But regardless, there's a little U on many interfaces. It's called unity gain. It's the optimal place to get the most signal with the least amount of noise, but it also assumes that you got everything running into the interface correctly and you're using it properly. In any case, we'll start right there and we'll see what we can get. Okay, so now I have things record enabled. Now, what if I have the track record enabled, I'm seeing signal on the interface, but I'm not seeing anything on the Pro Tools meter? I know I already checked my setup and I went into my playback engine. That's all correct. My inputs and outputs are defaulted. What else could be causing the problem? Well, what's probably causing the problem is that you don't have the correct channel selected on your channel strip, your interface channel. So for example, if I move this from left, which is the correct one, and I move it to right, now I don't see anything. Why? Because Pro Tools is actually looking now for channel 2, but I'm not plugged into channel 2, I'm plugged into channel 1. So you always want to make sure that you are plugged into the same channel that you're trying to record to. If you don't, you won't capture anything. Pro Tools and any other piece of software has to know which track and which interface channel, or it's not going to capture anything. Okay, so I'm going to move this back to channel 1. All right, and now I can see the meters working again. By the way, there's another button here along with the record enable and the solo button and the mute button. I'm going to turn off record enable, and this is kind of a cool feature. This I here, it's called input monitor. And what that lets you do when you press it, it lets you monitor the input. Now I'm not recording right now. I'm not going to be recording, but at least I can tell how much signal is coming in. I can make some adjustments, and I can make sure that everything is working and cooperating properly. Okay, so I'm going to turn off my input monitor right now because I don't need it for this particular task. I'm going to record enable my track. I'm going to go up here to my transport, and I'm going to record enable my session. And now when I press play, I'm going to record my voice based on what the instructions tell me to do. I'm going to record the phrase, my name is Richard Maxwell in my case. You'll use your name. So I'm going to say that phrase. I'm going to try to say it very deliberately. I'm not going to eat the microphone, but I want to speak nice and clearly. I'm not going to speak too fast or too slow because I want to be able to manipulate the data relatively easily. So just in a normal speaking voice right into the mic, here we go. My name is Richard Maxwell. Okay, so something happened here, but boy, I can't even really quite tell what it is. There's a little block. It's kind of hard to see what's going on. So one of the things I need to look at is, where is my information? Is it even there for sure? Let's go back and let's play it. Let's see if we actually even hear anything. My name is Richard Maxwell. Okay, so I can hear it. That's good. But I can't really see it, which means I can't really do anything to manipulate it. By the way, I'm also going to take off my record enable button here because I no longer need to record anything. But I do need to find where in the world is my actual information on the screen. I'm going to use the zoom tools. I'm going to zoom in. All right, because if I'm so zoomed out, I can't say, oh, now I'm seeing a waveform. There we go. Oh, maybe I went too far. In fact, be careful with the zoom tools. If you go too far, suddenly you can't see anything. It's zoomed so far in, you've got no information. Even all the way back at the beginning, I can't tell what's going on. So don't zoom in that far. All right. So let's find our information. There we go. That's looking a little better. Scrolling over. So here I can see my waveform. Now, I can see that I've got something happen in each one of these little blobs, right? These are different syllables in this case. And I've tried to speak in a way so you can see I've got spaces. That's going to make my life a lot easier on the next step. The other thing you may need to do is increase or decrease the visual in terms of how large the waveform is tall. In this case, I can make it smaller. And again, if you're not careful, it looks like it disappears. It's still there. Check it out. My name is Richard Maxwell. It's still there. I just can't see it. This is all just visuals that we're manipulating. This does not in any way change the sound. So here we go. I am now increasing it. That looks pretty good. That's maybe a little too much right there. So I can see all of the waveform information. I'm zoomed in at the right spot. The height of the waves is easy to look at. Now, what I need to do is I need to cut this up a little bit. Now, the grabber tool allows me to take a waveform and move it. And you'll notice over here, by the way, I'm in slip mode. In slip mode, I can move anywhere I want within the edit window. I can move this data anywhere I want. If I'm in grid mode, it's going to align to whatever my grid is. In this case, it's eighth notes. And now the waveform won't let me do anything except move on the grid. I'm going to use slip mode because I want the flexibility. I'm going to take another tool right now. It's called the selector tool. And the selector tool is going to allow me to change how many waveforms I have in this case because I'm going to cut it up a little bit. So what I'm looking for right now is the word is. If I can isolate the word is, I can move around all this audio. So where of these blobs is the word is? Let's listen one more time and follow the playhead as it goes and see if we can find the word is. Here we go.
My name is Richard.
Okay, so it's this third one here. So what I'm going to do is with my selector tool, I'm going to take and drag across, and you'll notice that it's highlighted, right? So highlighted, and now I'm going to go up here to Edit. I am going to go to Separate Clip at Selection, and watch what happens. Now, instead of having one waveform, I've got three, but I want to move them around. I can't move them with my selector tool. It's not going to let me grab anything and move it. I can just select and highlight. So I need to go back to my grabber tool. Here's something that's kind of cool. This little bracket above all three, if you click that, now you have the Smart tool. And depending on where you are on the waveform, will impact which of the tools you're using. So down here in the middle, I've got the grabber tool. If I move up, selector tool, right? If I go to the side, all the way to the edge, check this out. I can trim things, right? I can get rid of some of that extra space that I don't think I'm going to need. So this is the word is. This is my name. The instructions tell me to go from
My name is Richard Maxwell.
to reversing that to Richard Maxwell is my name. So I know this is my name is Richard Maxwell. So Richard Maxwell, I'm going to take is that I've already separated and move it. And now I'm going to take my name and I'm going to move it over here. And you're going to notice that the word order has changed, but you'll also notice something kind of funny about the way my voice sounds.
Richard Maxwell is my name.
And that's the project. I have now recorded some audio. I have manipulated some audio in Pro Tools. By the way, the reason why it sounds funny, we talk about this in class, is because we actually are singing when we speak. We just don't hear it that way. Shift the word order around and suddenly you hear the melody. Anyway, everybody in every group needs to do one of these tracks. If you want to do it all in the same session, when the first person is done, you can mute the one that's finished, and then you can go up to Track, hit New, Mono Audio Track, Create. Here's another one. Double check to make sure you've got the correct audio input for the interface. See, this one's in 2. It won't work because I'm plugged into channel 1. Go over here and rename it. Double click on the name, record enable, and move on from there. So there's all kinds of options with this project, but the goal is my name is, and then reverse that word order. I'm excited to hear what you can do.